I guess there's something to be said for not having any sort of stimulation. Like, you're supposed to be getting to that flow state where you're completely disconnected, but it also just seems like such a good opportunity to, put some work in, or something more constructive.
That's a thing now. It's called raw dogging.
Yeah. I have seen that. Like,
it sounds like weirdly sexual, but I think it's just the expression of like getting on a cross-country flight and just sitting there watching the thoughts. No,
that's
computer.
I feel like that's a little bit different. I'm not for that at all. But there is sometimes, like, if you're out there and you're exercising, you're supposed to be in tune with your body and everything else, like not having any of those outside influences or distractions to really understand what you're doing and like modulate your heart rate and control your breathing and all of that, I think is probably useful in some sense.
Easter talks about that too. One of the way he puts it is one of the forms of discomfort that really didn't exist generations ago, but is keenly present today is boredom. Our inability to deal with being bored, or I guess maybe more accurately to function without constant stimulation. Mm-hmm. And he talks about being dropped off on a glacier from this tiny little plane, so small it had to fly back to get the other guys. So he's alone. As far as he can see, is nothing but, wasteland, white. And there's nothing to read. There's nothing to do except maybe think about what he would do if a polar bear showed up. And he said, you like go through the 5 stages of grief in 15 minutes. Like when you really have absolutely nothing to do, nothing to look at, nothing to stimulate you at all. It's kind of terrifying if you're not used to it.
Yeah.
I think about my kids in this, like, I had a conversation that we were doing something and I came in, I shut the TV off and I'm like, guys, no, like we're just going to chill. And my 6-year-old goes, I'm bored. Mm-hmm. I'm like, hey, you got to learn to be bored. He goes, what, why? And I didn't know how to answer him. And I was like, because you don't always have to be doing something like, and I kind of went down this rabbit hole of like, sounding like my father, like, oh, when I was your age, we didn't have this, that, and the other thing. And I knew like my reasoning was, backed on like good data. Just, I didn't know what that data was.
Yeah.
I feel like the stimulation is like a distraction from everything else, right? Where it's like, even if I had nothing to do and I didn't have my phone, I'd probably have to think about my life and what I could do differently and how I could be a better person. And it's like, no, I'm just going to pull my phone out and then I don't have to think about it, right?
Yeah. Right. Well, that's what you call Kierkegaard 101, the unexamined life, right? And he who, I think it was Nietzsche, he who stares into the abyss should be careful because he might, see himself staring back, basically. Yeah, we don't want to do that. We don't want to spend more time than we have to thinking about all of our, mistakes and what might have been and what could have been. But by the same token, if you're really like would you call it the flow? Maybe there's some music in the background, but if you're really not focused on any one thing, then your brain will slip into that mode where it starts to seek instead of receive and process. And that's, on a creative level anyway. I mean, this probably happened to you on the job, right? Like you're trying to find a solution for a thing. And the trick or the trap is that you often find yourself just staring at the problem and thinking about what is the solution. And you get deeper and deeper into it when really you need to look off to the periphery sometimes, or like let your mind go someplace else. And then all of a sudden the reptilian part of your brain, right, taps you on the shoulder and says, hey, dummy, it's this. And you're like, oh, yeah, it was right in front of me the whole time.
I think that work for a long time did provide somewhat of a flow state, but I don't know if it was the healthiest outlet for a while. Like, I think that I was using work to distract myself. I guess it relates back to what you said with boredom. And my trouble with school and academia in general was that just I was so bored and I couldn't handle being bored. And then I found working with my hands, and it created such an outlet for me. But I think that I went like on the polar opposite end of the spectrum where I was all in and like nothing else mattered.
Yeah, that's super interesting to me, because I think, the adjacent trap to that is, once you find this thing that makes sense to your brain and to your hands and so forth, then we just heap so much expectation onto it. So like now suddenly our work has to satisfy everything. It's got to satisfy my hobby.
Yeah.
It's got to satisfy this. It's got to, and we do that all the time. It's like to really go back to what we first started talking about. Some days you listen to music. Some days you listen to podcasts. Some days it's a book on a tape. Some day maybe you just say, you know what, I got 2 hours. I'm rucking. I haven't talked to this guy, this woman, this friend in like 6 months, right? So this idea that you fall into a routine where it's, okay, this is my ruck bag and this is the weight. Those two things never change. This is my route, right? That's never going to change. This is my playlist. This is, and then pretty soon you're just so freaking boring, man. Talk about boredom. When you get bored with your own routine, and you look around, who do you blame for that? Well, that'd be you.
A couple of years ago, I remember coming home and like I was visibly stressed out, and I remember my wife saying, "You're bored." I'm like, "What do you mean I'm bored? I'm literally like have a million things going on." She goes, "Nick, you have been waking up at the same time every single day, doing the same morning routine, going to the same gym, going everything is exact same over and over and over." And I didn't change, for the record, but I was more aware of it, and I started looking at opportunity to understand, what was the benefit of me doing that, and finding a deeper or a deeper reason as to like, why do I wake up at the same time every day, and putting effort into it outside of just it happening, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the God. I can't believe I'm going to quote Tony Robbins with respect, but I mean, you're talking about certainty and uncertainty, and the fact that they're not really opposites. They're kind of two sides of the same coin. And I'd really love to get your thoughts on how you balance that with your employees, with your workforce. How do you keep your people engaged? You have to give them enough certainty so that they're comfortable knowing they're secure in their job, but you have to give them enough uncertainty that they don't fall into the same patterns and routines and rhythms, because all that stuff, never mind boredom, that fosters something that's a lot more dangerous, and that's complacency, especially on the job site. So I don't know. I think the way Tony put it was, as humans, we need the certainty that comes from knowing the sun is going to rise every morning. If we're constantly thinking that tomorrow is promised to no one, we're paralyzed. We can't do anything. But we also need the uncertainty, which is just another word for variety, in knowing that no two sunsets are going to be the same, or no two sunrises, and no 2 days, right? So to have enough certainty / security in your life, in your work, in your home, but at the same time to have enough uncertainty / variety to give you the presence of mind to say, you know what? I walked with 40 pounds yesterday. Today I'm walking with 65. That's a big jump. And I don't know exactly how it's going to impact me, slow me down, mess my time up, and so forth. So I just think that it's I'm probably saying something just screamingly obvious, but as a manager, as a boss, as a husband, as a dude, what do you guys do on a daily basis not to fall into the rut that's going to take you to complacencyville? Because that's nowhere you want to be.
I feel it's more like the quest for certainty, or you're chasing certainty. And then it's almost, at least from my perspective, once I get there, I need uncertainty to try and chase that certainty again, where it's like, it's never enough, right? I want it to be this way. I want it to be easy. I can't wait until I get to this point in my life or this point in my career or business. Once I have this, it'll be good enough. And then you get there and it's like, well, this is too easy. Now I have the complacency and I'm not engaged enough. Now I need more uncertainty in my life and more stress in my life to get me going again.
Right. Right.
Which is like this vicious cycle where I'm like, you're chasing and longing for something, and then once you get it, you realize that that's not quite enough, and then, or maybe that's just like my addictive personality.
Well, that's called the hero's journey, dude. And people have been writing operas about it and epics about it and Broadway musicals. Pippin it's the whole thing. It's the quest for it's greener grass, you know? And man, think about what that does to the workforce. Think about that.
Yeah.
You know, like you want ambition in your people. You want hunger. You know, you want initiative. But it's those very things that are also going to take your key people off the reservation, looking for something better somewhere else. You know, it's such a pain in the ass and an eternal struggle to both attract the talent that you need and then to keep them.
It's funny, Mike, you say, like, you described who we were to everyone else, right? Like as a husband, as a manager, but you didn't describe like what I am to myself. And I think when I think about uncertainty versus certainty, I look at, I internalize a lot. And I think that for me, the uncertainty is all internalized. So I deal with that completely by myself. And externally, as a manager, as a husband, as a father, I am all certainty and I am all confidence. And I am, this is going to work. There is absolutely no way this doesn't work. Mm-hmm. And I don't think, like, I say that knowing that that's not healthy. And I know we have this issue in our industry and in the world as we know it of mental health. And I know that what I'm describing is something that leads people down a path of mental health issues. But for me, that is how I've always dealt with it. I've just looked at it as though my job is to allow everyone to know and believe in what I'm doing. And internally, like, I might question myself, but I always pair that with the only way this doesn't work is if I give up, period. Because everything has an opportunity to work. And that doesn't mean it works exactly the way I thought it would, but everything has an opportunity to work. It's just how willing am I to make it work? And that's for me to figure out and not for me to ask advice of someone or, hey, what should I do here? Because for me, like, I feel my entire life has been this chase of doing something bigger than maybe I'm supposed to, or this chase of doing something that people don't think is right, or there's an easier path here. And I've just never been attracted to that.
So that's the imposter syndrome, right?
100%.
I don't know any, but well, I know a few sociopaths who don't really suffer from it, but most thoughtful people, at some point will take a long look in the mirror and go, "You again? God, you are so full of shit." Is anybody buying any of this? That's normal. But as you were talking, I was wondering, did you freelance in the trades for a time, or like before you put out your own shingle? What was the uncertainty like in terms of looking for work for you? Not for anybody else, but for you.
For looking for work.
Yeah, and look. As you formulate an answer, I'll just give you a quick example because I was thinking of this just the other day. I freelanced for 15 years before I actually got a paycheck with any kind of regularity. And my months always started the same. I would turn the calendar over and there'd be 30 blank squares. And the uncertainty of looking at 30 blank squares and the anxiety that came from, God, I wonder how many I'm going to be able to fill. It it was constant, and it didn't matter how good a month I had. The next month, that same kind of excitement / dread, it was always there. And then one day I went back through old calendars, like years, earlier. I mean, I couldn't find a month that didn't have 20, 25 squares X'd out where I'd gotten work, right? So I just find that, the whole freelance mentality has always interested me in entrepreneurs, and especially in the trades, because I don't think we talk enough about that. The idea that, a person who's mastered a skill and is willing to go to where the work is in this industry really can write their own ticket. They just have to get over that feeling of 30 blank squares staring them in the face and all the uncertainty that comes with it.